With one of the Swedish holidays landing on a Thursday this May, Friday was turned into a free day, and suddenly I had a very long weekend ahead of me. I had also just purchased a new video camera, so I had the perfect setup for a good adventure. I packed my gear and headed off to Kinnekulle with my trusty partner Sture. Spring was in the air and the forecast promised good weather. About an hour and a half into the drive, I seriously started doubting that forecast. Me and Sture were kitted out for a dry day in the outdoors, so I was hesitant to continue. But with most of the distance already behind us, I decided to press on still. I had planned a 7-kilometer hike looping past a place called Stora Stenbrottet, and based on the photos I'd seen online, I really didn't want to miss out. And within minutes of arriving to where we'd start our hike, it started pouring down. Sture and I were both eager to head out after the long drive, but had to remain in the car for a bit and try to wait out the rain. I considered just turning around, going back home and calling it a day, but I figured I'd try something else first. We aborted the hike and instead drove directly to the quarry, hoping we would get a glimpse of the place from the car, at the very least. This is what it looks like outside right now, and me and Sture are both completely stranded in the car because we simply didn't bring the rain gear for this day, and I assumed there would be no rain when we arrived to this what looks to be a really awesome place, an old quarry outside of, or inside of, Kinnekulle in Sweden. I've been driving for 2 hours, and as I approached here, maybe with 30 minutes left of driving, I saw the weather forecast changed drastically. And yeah, I didn't bring any rain gear, so here I am, stranded. We just have to wait a bit, and the worst case, we just have to go home again. So next time, bring the rain gear, always. Having now gotten that first glimpse of the place, we both were even more excited to head out. So we chilled a bit more in the car, hoping again that it would clear, and this time eventually it did. My camera came out a few times, and although no bangers were created, I at least got a few pictures to remember the place by. But there was one thing that kept bugging me in most photos. You guessed it, the white streak of campers in the background. I asked myself how anyone could choose to put a campsite at such a beautiful location, but immediately felt a bit selfish for thinking that way and continued on. The loop around the quarry led to several nice looking trails. We only walked them for a short while beyond the quarry, but I definitely felt inspired to come back and explore more someday. Just before we turned around in the direction of the parking lot again, something along the trail caught my eye.
This truly feels like walking into an episode of The Walking Dead or something. Where are the zombies?
Unfortunately, we quickly had to turn around as shards of glass were all over the ground and I didn't really want to risk anything with Sture's tiny paws. But I think I got myself at least a half decent photo of the place before we moved on again. At this point, I was really starting to enjoy our little trip and felt like exploring much more. The sky, however, now suggested again that it might be a very good idea to quickly head back towards the car. As we headed back, I couldn't help but think back to my previous pondering on the campsite being in the way for my pictures. With the bad weather rolling in, it suddenly seemed like the best idea in the world to have a camper to cozy up inside of. Maybe this is precisely the location to be camping actually. Anyways, we made it back to the car just in time, and this next shower of rain ended our little hike for this day. On the way out, I stopped in what seemed like a very cozy little town called Götene. We grabbed a nice meal and I treated Sture to some snack. Then, what remained was just us, the road, and another 2 hours together, just the way I like it. And in the end, the day really turned out great. Although the rain was a constant worry, I think the day actually ended up being more interesting because of it. So, I hope you enjoyed coming along on this little adventure with us, and see you in the next one.